We're learning a 31-year-old man from California is expected to appear in federal court in Washington today to face charges in Saturday night's shooting at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. Investigators have been combing through the suspect's writings to zero in on a motive. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump said he wants to see the event rescheduled soon. Karen Kafa is in Washington with the latest.
We've learned this morning that the White House plans to meet with Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security early this week to review security measures around high-profile events where the president is in attendance. This on the heels of that shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday night. In an interview with CBS News on Sunday, President Trump said he wasn't worried as shots rang out.
I wasn't worried. I understand life. We live in a crazy world.
President Donald Trump, in an interview that aired on CBS 60 Minutes Sunday, insisted that the White House Correspondents' Dinner be rescheduled after gunshots outside the ballroom prompted chaos Saturday night.
We should do it within 30 days, and they'll have even more security, and they'll have bigger perimeter security. It'll be fine.
Law enforcement officials on both sides of the country spent Sunday digging into the life and possible motives of 31-year-old Cole Tomas Allen. The California teacher has been identified by authorities as the alleged gunman who charged a security checkpoint outside the Washington ballroom where the president, vice president, cabinet members, and congressional leaders were in attendance.
Had an explosive device gone off, you would have knocked out the president, vice president, speaker, the three in line of succession.
In writing shared with family just prior to the shooting, the suspect described himself as, quote, the friendly federal assassin, a source said.
This is moving these types of individuals from intent to action. And that new threat vector is very concerning to the FBI, the Secret Service, and anybody who engages in, protective responsibilities.
Allen's family notified police of his writings, the White House said, just minutes before the incident took place. And we will likely learn more about what the investigation has yielded so far, as the suspect is expected to be arraigned in federal court today. Right now, he's facing charges of using a firearm during a crime of violence and assault on a federal officer using a dangerous weapon, although it's expected additional charges could be filed. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
Georgia political leaders now reacting after that terrifying scene Saturday night. Atlanta News First reporter Joshua Skinner is live from outside the Georgia State Capitol. Joshua, there is some gratitude, anger, a little bit of everything.
Absolutely. The local reaction mirrors a lot of what the national reaction has been in an event that's unfortunately not all that uncommon in the modern political environment. Investigators, as we just heard, trying to piece together why a 31-year-old Caltech graduate mechanical engineer, Cole Allen, is alleged to have sprinted through that security checkpoint at the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday night in what law enforcement says was a targeted attack on President Trump and his officials. Luckily, nobody was killed, but one Secret Service officer was shot in the chest, a life that was likely saved by a bulletproof vest. Now, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp released a statement Friday night stating that he is thankful that everyone at the event is safe and that he and his family are praying for the Secret Service agent who was shot. Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock stated that political violence has, quote, no place in America. Now, Georgia Congressman Brian Jack was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday night. He had mixed reactions about the incident, stating on social media that he was thankful that law enforcement had such a swift reaction to the fast-moving event, but also saying that, quote, this is a horrible moment for our country. Live outside the Capitol, Joshua Skinner, Atlanta News First.
Georgia election season is in full swing. Early voting for the state's primary elections is now underway.
There are a lot of big races this year, including governor, the U.S. Senate, congressional districts, and several state house seats. Atlanta News First, Sarah Hammond is live from the Buckhead Library. Sarah, how is it looking for early voting out there today?
Well, we've been here at the Buckhead Library really since the doors opened at 7 o'clock this morning for the first day of early voting. It started out pretty quiet here, but as the day has been going on in the last 2 hours or so, it's really picked up, and we've seen quite the crowd going in and out, but moving very quickly. So voters, they are hitting the polls to weigh in on the primaries that will determine the candidates in the critical midterm elections in November. And many of these races, we could see a June runoff thanks to crowded fields in these major races. And throughout the week, Voters will get to hear from the candidates in the Atlanta Press Club's Loudermilk Young debate series. Last night, the candidates for lieutenant governor and the Republicans vying to take U.S. Senator John Ossoff's seat took the stage. And this morning, here at the Buckhead Library, voters tell us they are grateful to be able to make their voices heard.
It is humbling. So I am grateful for the privilege to vote because I know how important public service has been and continues to be, not only for my family, but these of they whom are similarly situated.
Now, early voting runs through May 15th. Election Day is May 19th, and we have all of the information that you need to know before you head to the polls.